Good. So we're recording now.
Yep.
Chris, what's up, man? Good to see you.
What's up, brother? Yep.
Hope all's well, man.
All's good, brother.
Yeah, man. My name's Coach Konopka, Steve Konopka. I'm owner of Strength and Honor Training and Nutrition. And this is Chris Janek, and I'll let you let them know what you got going on.
Yeah, my name's Chris Janek. My nickname was Tank. I own a facility called Tank's Training Facility. It's right outside of St. Louis, in a town called Granite City, Illinois. Just a little background about our city, Granite City, Illinois. I don't know if we still do. Our wrestling has gone down a little bit. We were leading the nation in dual victories. We were over 1,000, but we had really rich history in wrestling. And I myself, I played football for 18 years, but I wrestled for 6. I loved wrestling, but I just didn't want to do it in college. I wanted the glory and play football.
Yeah.
But I hung out with a bunch of wrestlers. Donnie Pritzlaff, he coaches at the Rutgers. Sean Bormet was one of my buddies. He's at Michigan now. Good friend of mine, Permat, was the heavyweight. Cole Clausen was a national place winner. Ryan Brenninger. So I hung out with as many wrestlers as I did football players. We are a bunch of nutty dudes, and I got along with them well, just like I do football athletes. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. For those of you that don't know, I'm in Simsbury, Connecticut. Chris and I played arena football together for a few years as competitors and teammates, and we're both a bunch of meatheads just looking to help athletes not make the mistakes we made and increase people's performance in everything, man. We haven't played together in what, 15 years or so, somewhere around there. No, 20. Let's see,
2009.
2009. Yeah. So it's been a while, 14 years, and we're still in connection, growing, learning from each other. So this is pretty cool. So to the people that are seeing this, we're going to start this. We're going to try to do this weekly and get some good information out there. Ask you guys what you want to hear, and like we posted on our Instagram handles at Strength and Honor Training. And at Tank's Training Facility, and we got a lot of feedback. We had about 40 questions, so it's pretty cool. This is our first time doing this, so bear with us if it's not perfect sound or color, but we're gonna get you some good info. This time, the biggest questions were on in-season training, and it was I like that because that means athletes are thinking about it. Sometimes it's easy to work hard in the off season, right? But in season, things come up, and people are tired. You got homework, you got practice, you got this, it's not as convenient as the off season, and that's where I think the true athletes make levels of jumps. Is that what you see with the in season?
Yeah. I go back always to one of my strength coaches, Chris Doyle. He was at Iowa Hawkeyes for many years, and
phenomenal coach.
Phenomenal. And this isn't word for word, but it's very close. He told me something like, and I need to find it because I have it in my email. If you're not going to lift in season, you might as well not lift out of season.
Yep.
You might as well just do something else. And I think time management's huge. It doesn't have to be an hour or 2 workout in season. Get in your compound, get a couple of sessions, get some in maintenance. It's just maintenance. Maintain all the strength you gained.
Yeah, I've heard that before. It's probably come from him. Like when I've heard other coaches say, "Hey, should I train in season?" And like, "Well, do you train in the off season?" Yes, then you should train in there. I've heard that as well. And
100%.
Yeah. All right. So the top questions, like we said, were training in season, where it was asked a few different ways. And the first one was training in season compared to off season, and what are some of the main differences? And like, you and I could probably do 3 hours of this, but let's touch on, you give me your 3 and I'll give you my 3 top differences in season and out season. They'll probably be awful similar, but we'll do this. So what are your top 3 you think?
We live in a new city called Edwardsville, Illinois, and I think they've won I don't know what you call it, districts or region for, I think it's like 15 years now straight. So I'm in the off season around week 3. The biggest thing from out of season, which we're now like an off season, in season is, like we said, the time. So we might spend an hour and a half lifting, training, more exercises, getting after it a little longer. You still want to go heavy in season, but off season is time. We're going, like I said, a minute, hour 15, hour and a half. In season, like when my son and his buddies lift, we're probably going, we warm up a little bit, of course, if they're not already warmed up from practice, coming immediately after, probably 35, 40 minutes, crisp, get in, get out, keep that strength maintained. That to me is probably the bigger difference, the just the time management, what you're doing off season to end season.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Like for football, lacrosse, wrestling, Chris and I have the BMFA Badass MFer Wrestling ebook. It's the top seller on EliteFTS.com for wrestling strength training. So that's one of the things we mainly talk about. But for all athletes, all sports, I agree with you on that one. The time that you're in that weight room's got to be very efficient, in my
yeah.
opinion. It's got to be planned out, efficient, very and extremely effective. You can get in and out, like you just said. If the kids are organized properly, they know the lifts, it's structured on the board, and the weight room set up properly, you could get in and out in 30 to 40 minutes, even with
Yeah.
big groups. I have, like, our wrestling team, we have about 40 to 45, and we're in and out in 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. Football team, in season, we mainly do varsity lift. Sometimes the JV spill in as well, but that's 45 minutes just because it's a big group and we get it done. So I'm with you on that one. Time cut back as well. We got to get that body healing.
Yeah, and I think too, like you said, with 45, it kind of depends on the layout as well. The wrestling weight room up here is nice, but it's not huge. So right now in the off season, I think we have between 22 to 25 at one time. They're switching it up soon, but right now they have 3 racks. So you always want to start with that compound first and work your way down to the secondary accessories.
Yep.
But it depends too on your layout now. If my son's going to my gym, which is not far from where he goes to school, usually he's there by himself, so he could elongate that time a little bit. But you want to save a lot of that energy and effort, and you don't want to add more stressors to your life, but you need to maintain what you built in the off season. I'll tell you, we do have a coach locally here that absolutely does not want his athletes to work out. He says, do not work out in the off season. And it's the biggest bonehead mistake you ever heard. And it's showing now that his team is just feel bad for the athletes because they literally, I don't think they get punished. They get reprimanded. He gets upset. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like,
These
but
are wrestlers or football or
high
what?
school. No, high school wrestler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
absolute insanity.
insanities. But if you look at the background, back in the day when I was in high school, you're in high school, I think it was like, hey, run more, more burpees, more burpees, more burpees. In season, out of season, I'm like, dude, what the hell? But I don't think the knowledge it was there, but it wasn't as spread out as it is nowadays. And I think it's just complete ignorance with the knowledge you have and the people you could reach out to, and they would tell you right away, like, that's wrong. But
Yeah.
2024, no working out in season.
Yeah.
Mind blowing,
What do you? What's number 2 on your list for the difference in season and out of season?
Probably now again, like we talked earlier, scope of practice. But I do think, with depending on your weight class, of course, hunkering down your diet a little more. Right now, I'm just pumping these kids right now in their off season more protein. I just did a clinic. So the old protein was 1.8 up to 2.8 per kilogram per NSCA. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
But 2.8, it's up to 2.8 if you're in a carb deficit, which honestly,
That's per kilogram or a pound of weight?
Per kilogram.
Per
So
kilogram.
1.8 low end, it could be up to 2.8 if you're in a carb deficit because you're going to lose some energy cutting carbs, which I don't think athletes should cut carbs. Maybe in season a little bit, but now they're saying there's a study now, it's up to 3.1 per kilogram. And there's some bodybuilding studies now. Some guys are taking up to 4.1, which is you do the math on that, it's a lot. It's a lot. But again, you're talking bodybuilding, the athletes. I'm not saying bodybuilders aren't athletes, but they're not.
They're not performance athletes.
Not performance. That the anaerobic and the aerobics different, way different. But I think your diet's got to be a little different out of season, in season. I mean, I think you should always never let yourself go. But you want to, I think, pump that. for most off season, you want to get a little leaner, a little meaner, a little bigger. I say, build, get a little more bigger, and then the off season, in season, get to where you need to be weight wise that best fits your game plan or your coach where you think's best for you to place and do well.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's another good point there. For wrestling, yeah, if we focus on that one right there for that question, it's like in season, you got to be super clean. If you're not, you're just, and that's the biggest thing. I see kids that struggled in making weight, right? They're asking coach, because I'm a lock and Leith Hart certified weight cut specialist, for MMA.
Yeah.
And, so a lot of that does carry over to help the athletes. And I hate using the word weight cut, man. It's usually, if it's done properly, it's all it is water manipulation, right?
Yeah.
You're getting rid of your water, right? Water weight. You're not pigging out. And then you got to hydrate back up and use your brain and be focused. It's really not that hard. It's the kids being disciplined. In season, man, they just got to, in season, you got to be, there's no room for error, right? You got to see, you should be seeing how much you're floating. All right. That means watching what your weight is before you go to bed. What is it in the morning? So when a kid comes to me, he's like, hey coach, XY, I'm 132 pounds. I got to be 128 on Saturday. Okay. What should I eat? What do you mean? Well, how much are you floating? That's my first question, because then I know if you're hydrated or not as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing is if they have no idea, that means they really don't care. And I'm going to sit here and spend some time to help this and put it in. And probably the kid's not going to do it. So it's another thing I've learned the hard way, right? I stay up an extra couple hours to write something out and help this kid out. And then Friday morning at school, I'm getting a text from the coach. He's 3.5 over, weigh-ins are at 3, and he's spitting in a can and running. I'm like, there was no reason for that. But so nutrition, it's got to be tight. And I agree. As soon as that wrestling season's over, you should be putting on 5-10 pounds. You should be putting, and that will come 3 to 5 of it, in my opinion. And obviously, there's huge ranges here, right? So the numbers I'm using are just typical what I see with some of my athletes. But you're going to get 3 to 5 pounds just a water weight, right?
Yeah.
Sweating it off 2 pounds every day of practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you could, if you can grow into that next weight class, or if you are small for your weight class, hey, put on good lean muscle by increasing your calories, strength training properly, still working on your skill set. So you never have to knock that rust off. And then instead of cutting down or water manipulating down 2 to 3 pounds now, because you were real small for that weight class, now you're manipulating down 5 to 6 pounds, but you're stronger, you're a little bigger. And so, yeah, nutrition inside and outside. In season, you got to be, there's no room for error.
Yeah, that water manipulation, and now we're talking about a different world, powerlifting world. I've met some crazy people on the water manipulation. I don't know if you know Brian Carroll. He squatted 1,300.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out of Jacksonville, so he's the first man to squat 1,300. He actually wrote a book with him and Stuart McGill, the back guy. He's the author of The Big Three. Brian told me his protocol, and don't do this as wrestlings, but I'm not going to say, but his water manipulation is freaking bananas, like crazy. So yeah, you got to be careful with that. In the powerlifting world, a lot of people, they flood their kidneys, basically, I think is what it is, and then they'll, 10, 15, 20 pounds, I've heard from people I know, which is bananas.
Yeah. So this isn't for high school wrestlers. That type of stuff isn't for college.
No,
that type of stuff. Yeah, that's a different, just like the MMA guys that I train. I do their weight cuts. Like I said, I'm Lockhart and Leith certified. Yeah. And hey, these guys are manipulating 15 to 20 pounds of water. Right.
It happens in MMA too. It's
similar. Big time. Put it this way. I haven't personally been around people that do more than that, but there's guys, and they can do it no problem. Don't get me wrong, it is torture, right? But if done, properly with counting everything and setting everything up in the protocol, and then the main thing is the difference in the athletes that can do it and can't do it.
Yeah,
effectively is the reload and the rehydration. That's where all
Yeah.
the magic happens, right? So when wrestlers only have to do 3 to 5 pounds, and there are, and they have muscle on them, the more muscle you have, the more water you carry, the more water you can expel.
Yeah.
So putting on 2-3 pounds of good functional athletic muscle actually might help you make that weight class a little easier, but
Yeah.
you got to do everything right, and
Yeah.
that's where people, they hear these horror stories with the nutrition. Oh, he cut this way, he cut that, and he's terrible. Like, you got to do everything properly. All right.
Yeah.
So second tip, of course, we agree on nutrition's got to be a lot cleaner and tighter in season, and then off season, we got to fuel that body and put on some size and some strength and functional muscle. What's number 3 that comes to your head?
I like recovery. So, off season, we still do a lot of the body tempering. I have up to the 165s, little
Those
foam
from
roll in here.
Donnie Thompson, right?
Yeah, Donnie. So Donnie originally called his 165 pounder the ex-wife.
Yes, I remember.
Rogue bought it, so they obviously changed the name. But I have to send you a picture. We have up to 33, and I got like 6 or 7 up to 165.
Wow.
We do a lot of that in the off season recovery, but I think in season, not just your massage therapies or if you need a chiropractor or your foam rolling, but I think sleep is, even if it's a 20-minute nap, that'll really help you to get your cortisol levels down. I think recovery for me is another huge one in season. If you're not, and you might be wrestling a tournament, so you got to do something between those matches, or you might have a match on a Tuesday and a Thursday. You got to recover. So I think recovery for me is another big one, and it's important in the off season too. Whatever contrast showers, whatever you do for recovery. To recover, I think you need to really hunker down on that in season, because you're not recovered, you're still sore, your cortisol levels up, you're not going to perform as well. So I think that's a good one to do as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're big into the compression boots, the Normatec boots.
Those are nice.
That's with those. We have a place over here called iCryo, and my athletes, we have a good discount with our athletes that use it. And
Nice.
they go in there and they get red light therapy, then they get into the cryo bed, and then they do the boots as well. So freeze and squeeze. So red light therapy, hit that cryo chamber, and then get some compression. It's kids come out just feeling great.
How does the cryotherapy? Because we always just do the cold tubs.
Cold tubs, yeah, that's what we did. I did as well, yeah.
So when I got, long story, when I got sick with my heart long time ago, the cryotherapy started coming out, and I've never done it. I've done the cold tubs, but what is the comparison of those two? Which one's better in your opinion? More effective, or are they the same?
I think they're, I think they're pretty close to being the same with the effectiveness. I think for sore legs, I still like a cold tub,
Yeah.
I just because you're in there. I mean, when we played every practice, I got into a cold tub up to
Me too.
and you know what? We stayed in there 15, 20 minutes sometimes because we were just talking shop and hanging out, right? But what I do like about the cryo is you're done in like 2 to 4 minutes. You're in and out. I don't, especially for legs though, like when we like training camp legs, I still am a garbage can full of ice and water.
Yeah, man.
Your hips, and you stay in there. I feel it's a deeper cold, right? It gets in a little bit deeper. But with that said, the cryo, man, I'm telling you, because you're getting your whole body, and the first 45 seconds, you're like, what did I just do to myself, right?
Yeah.
And then you're halfway through and you're like, all right, I'm getting through this. And then you get out, and then your body just releases all the blood flow and you start moving. And it's just like, it's just it makes a difference, man. It is. And it's a lot easier to do. And especially if you don't have an ice machine, you're putting ice right now. It's expensive, man. Just to do a garbage can full of ice, you're spending $20.
Jesus.
and you
Yeah.
like you can't. How often are you going to do that? And it's a headache. But that cryo, man, you're in and out in 3 minutes. Get some compression. You're a new guy, man. So I really like
I'll
that.
recommend that. I'll recommend that. There's a place close to, we live in Edwardsville now, and the high school wrestlers, I got them tomorrow at 10 a.m. They're off school. I'll recommend it. They're asking about recovery. So I always said, like you said, cold tub, but what are they called around the legs again? The compression? What did you call
Compression,
them?
Normatec boots.
Yeah, I need to talk to
There's
the
a lot of
trainer.
brands out of there. I think Normatec was like the leader in the
Yep.
technology and like how they compress in different chambers. But yeah, I mean, I have kids that come over, just lay in the gym, put the boots on for 20 minutes and leave. And like, thanks, coach.
You
So
know, the Rice method, rest, ice, compression, elevate. We just kind of talked about the ice, the boots, the compression. We didn't talk about elevate, but that's I think those are all great recovery methods, man. You
yeah,
know.
absolutely. All right. So the three you got there, we got training in season, cutting back the time, nutrition, and recovery stuff. Some of my things I think in season, not just for wrestling, but for all sports, it's staying when someone comes to me and says, "Hey, can I do this exercise?" And I'm like, "All right, well, did we train that exercise all off season?" Or no, but I saw it on Instagram, or
Oh yeah.
the wrestlers at Rutgers are doing it. Okay, well, that doesn't mean it's good for you right now. It's for you
Yeah.
to, I like Zercher squat. I love the Zercher squat in the off season, which sometimes I still do in season for the guys, but sometimes I get a little worried about that lower back.
Yep.
But it helps strengthen the lower back. But for someone who's
Yeah.
never done them, I'm not going to implement those in season. So one of
Right.
my biggest things is like, here's your set. This is what we're doing. And if we didn't do it in the off season and you're not familiar with that exercise, we're not doing it in season. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, what got you here and what's maintaining in
Yeah.
your body. Because I think that's too much of a stimulus for the CNS.
I was just gonna say that.
Increase soreness. It can increase the soreness beyond
Yeah.
what we're used to, which we don't need, and the small chance for injury too. I mean that can
Yeah.
happen doing a normal exercise you're familiar with, but yeah, I do 315 for fives on squat. I'm gonna go. Well, what do we do for Zercher? Well, you haven't done it, so we have no data to
Yeah.
keep it at 80% or 65% for in season, right?
Yeah.
You put 245 on there, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, something's tweaked for what? So that's one of
Yeah.
my
I mean,
keys, and that's in any sport, not just wrestling. I really dislike using anything we're not familiar with.
yeah. I like that stimulus thing. You only need to provide enough stimulus for maintenance in season, and if you throw something there you're not used to, a new stimulus, like you said, you get hurt. What if you miss 2 weeks in wrestling? If it's at the wrong time, you're done. State's done.
Oh,
You're not going
absolutely.
to regionals or I don't know what it is out there. Is it regionals, sectional,
Yeah,
state, or is it?
we have. It's weird here, man. They do a few things right and a lot of things wrong. But we have our conference championships, which really don't equate to anything. But then you have your class, which is kind of like other people's districts or regionals, and then
Sure.
top four in each class, because we have four classes, or
Yep.
yeah, 4 to 6 classes. I can't remember on that. And then sort of top four in each, then go to the state open, right?
Okay.
And then from there, then you go to New England's. And, for bigger states like your state and PA, our New England's is kind of equivalent to your state, right?
Okay.
Right. So around here, wrestling is what it is. We're up and coming for sure, especially in Connecticut. We had four kids in the top 20 to 2027 big board this year, top 100.
Oh yeah, man.
That's huge for that's never happened in Connecticut or New England for kids to be on there. And then we had, and two of them made the top 25, and they're holding strong in there. So
Yeah.
so we're coming along, but yeah, like you said, if you miss something, you fatigue yourself too much, tweak something a little bit the wrong time, whole season's over.
Yeah.
So
Done.
it's a good point there for training smart.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing for in season and off season. We can touch on more points on that again. Another big thing, more than one person, this was like 4, says, is not training in season bad? So we had 4 of these. I'll let you lead this one too, because I think we think alike. I believe so. I'll let you roll with this one first.
No, it is not training in season bad. Yes, of course. I mean, we just talked about that. I mean, the same thing goes back. If you're not training in season, you might as well, I don't know, do something else.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You need to do something, and it's all dictated in how many matches you got throughout the week. In a perfect world, if you got one a week, maybe get 2 or 3 times in that week. But they don't have to be drawn out full fledged. You're going to be practicing already. That's your sports practice. And then if you just get a 30-minute in, kind of off subject, but I would like to see more people taking some sort of nutrition. So right now we're on week 3. So these guys work out with me for an hour, hour 15, hour and a half.
Yep.
And then some are going to wrestle. I'm like, dude, you just got out of school. You haven't ate for 2 or 3 hours. You're going to be an hour, 15, hour and a half. Then you're going to practice. You need to eat something right now. Bring it. So no, yeah, really blunt and quick answer is yes, it's very bad not to work out in season. But I understand, again, they might not know. So that's probably why they're listening to this little podcast we're doing, or this little interview we're doing. You definitely have to lift in season. No question, no debate.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well. For any sport, we keep gearing a little more towards wrestling, but like football, lacrosse, even baseball, man. But wrestling as well. If you trained in the off season, you have to lift in season. You're going to lose 2 to 5 every week. You're not training. I think like cardiovascular, like endurance running, I think it's, in 3 days you start to lose, right? And your strength and muscle mass, you lose as soon as you stop strength training, you're losing 2 to 5%, in my opinion, a week, a week to 10 days, and if you calculate that over what is it, a 12-week wrestling season, which if the better wrestlers wrestle 16 weeks, 18 weeks, right? You're losing a lot. And it gets to the point where, what did you bust your tail for the whole off season just to give it and let it go? Just like you just walk into the season, you're going to maintain it. I mean, it doesn't happen. If you can maintain 80%, 90%, that's a huge advantage, right? So if you put your strength up and then you can maintain it, that would be, so yeah, off season and training in season, not training in season. I think you're for injuries too.
On the football, I hope in football, my son and your son's opponents don't lift in season, because then eventually they're going to meet our sons and get smoked, because our sons are doing what's right. And again, I'm sure you have it up there, but over here, there's a couple coaches in season. We're just going to, no, we're not going to lift. We'll just run a little more. I'm like, what the knowledge nowadays, you should know better as a sports coach. Yep. Maybe you don't, but again, I'm sure it happens up there, but it definitely happens over here too.
It happens here probably more than down there, man. They run them more, and they don't even run it properly. They're running hundreds and gassers. That doesn't even carry over to conditioning in football. Yeah, the craziest. I had a not an argument, but a discussion with, and he's actually a pretty good coach. It's not a coach that I work with, but it was, I forget the setting we were in. I think it was like a golf fundraiser. And we were talking about conditioning, and it's like, hey, we do the 110s and we do the suicides. And I was like, how long are the suicides? And they're like, well, they do this. And I'm like, that's like 25, 30-second run, right? And they're like, yeah. Something on there. And I was like, football is 5 to 7 seconds. Yeah. And then so my next question was to him, I'm like, well, how long till they're in football shape during the season? Kind of double-edged sword here I give him. And he was like, yeah, usually by the 3rd game, they're in football shape. And then so I was like, so if you're telling me they're in takes the 3rd game to really, now you can never be in game day shape just because the intensity and the violence of the football team, right? Yeah. All right. So we just, so people understand that, like, I'm not saying if you change to this type of conditioning, day 1, you're ready, right? So that's a different animal. But if you're telling me the 3rd game, you start to notice they can get through all the plays, then maybe what you're doing isn't working. Right. You need to be in that 5 to 7 second range, some receivers, you run them a little longer, but that's a whole nother, maybe that'll be one of the discussions on the future
You
weeks.
know, here at least, exactly what you're talking about. It's the same thing. Well, and then you're talking about coaches 45 and older. Well, it's what
Yep.
we did and it worked. Well, the knowledge wasn't there, maybe
Right.
a little bit, but just because we did it doesn't mean it was good. It wasn't good. It's
Yeah.
not good then. It's not good now. Don't do
Yeah.
it. Don't be a dummy, But you got to be careful with these sports coaches, man. It's a
Yep.
weird thing, man.
Right. All right. So we're good with that one. If you work out in the off season, you better train in season. If you want to maintain, if you want to maintain everything you gained, all right, and you want to put to use all that hard work you did and maintain as much as possible of it to have an advantage towards the end of the season, you better be working in season. Find a way, find a time, and in our other things we talked about, shorten that time up, and that's a good way to find that touch point there of finding the time to do it. Another question that popped up a few times was what's more important, playing another sport to work on my skill set or strength training? My opinion on this is it kind of leads to the other last question we just handled. So, if you're like right now, we got lacrosse is big by us, right? And some of our top wrestlers are they're playing lacrosse as well. They still wrestle, right? They still get 1 to 2 practices in a week. It doesn't have to be crazy intense, but we kind of just finished through nationals. Freestyle season is starting. So they're getting a little bit of both. But in my opinion, just like that last question we just answered, you got to be strength training. You got to find that balance, and it's not easy. But you got to find that balance. I know some of my athletes, so they'll wrestle on Sundays. Right. So they go and they go get a practice, good, a little bit of live, but mostly just good drilling technique and stuff like that. And like during the season, like this week, they have a game Thursday and Saturday. So they hit the weight room Monday and the practice on Sunday, weight room after or before practice. Tuesday, some of these guys are high level wrestlers, so they still got in a 2 hour or hour and a half practice, and then they'll hit the weights again probably Friday, and then Sunday. So they're working on their skill set 1 or 2 times of an opposite sport, but they're still getting their two strength training sessions in. So my opinion is just like our second question is you need to get that strength training in, all right? Because it's going to help both of those sports, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And if you're in season somewhere, you get it. And then maybe if like with us with wrestling, sometimes they only get 1 in a week, right? It's a private, or you get 2 or 3 guys together, go do a private with a coach, and it's more effective and more efficient practice. So that's my opinion on that. It's just we kind of answered that with our second one, but I get where some people are trying to get ahead on the next season, right? A pitcher, shortstop, a catcher, a soccer goalie. I get it. And in your skill, I would do more of a skill set session than like a real practice, in my opinion. Like you're a goalie, you shouldn't be going to a full soccer tournament or something like that. You could just work your goalie skill set and still get your strength training. So I'm definitely, I would go strength training first and maybe more detailed skill set training on a secondary sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like athletes that play more than one sport. I think that's important. But like you touched on, you still like wrestling just ended. To my athletes right now, football athletes, I'm talking about my son, football, wrestling just ended. Now he's back to football. He still needs to do a little bit of wrestling to stay crisp. And like you hit it, we put him in some one-on-ones, just some drilling, a little bit of live here and there. But again, you have to find the time to strength train. If you don't do that, you're just going to go down. Right now, the knowledge is getting there. A lot of people around the country know this. There's people like me and you around the country that are coaching like we are, and they're getting taught. Other kids are learning this. And if you don't catch up, you're just going to go back, and then you're going to get passed up, basically. I mean, I'm not saying kids don't do it for fun, but if you want to be serious about it and elevate your game, you have to train with the weights under a good template. And but I still think, yeah, you're right. Two sports. I got a lacrosse athlete. It's getting kind of big here too. Just finished track and he's doing track and field and lacrosse at the same time. Lacrosse here is not it's like a club sport, but they play other schools that are like actual sports. But
Yep.
it is getting a little bigger. But he was in this morning, 6 a.m. high school athlete, and he lives from my gym probably 25-minute drive. So he's probably getting up at 5. High
Yeah.
school athlete, pretty awesome,
Yeah. That's
So he
that's
got in.
impressive, man. That's
Yeah.
impressive.
So we hit him on a few squats, low reps, triples. It was probably 85% of his max. We did a couple Tuesday 3, we did a couple unilaterals, a couple sets, a couple heavy abs. We stretched him, we got him out. Maintained, boom, he's there.
That's awesome.
And he's playing, he's going to Division II in Missouri.
Wow.
They're called the Miners. So he's a linebacker type.
Yeah.
He's about 245-ish, 6'1". So yeah,
Boy.
he's doing it. Yeah,
See,
he's doing it.
See, I love that, man, because a lot around here, like some of the, I think the parents always come say, hey, how does my kid get better? How does he eat this? Well, I think the parents, and a lot of you got parents aren't going to want to hear it. They got to get more involved.
Yeah.
Right. If you want you got to think they're teenagers, right? Think about what we did as teenagers. It's tough. And the teenagers don't have Fruity Pebbles in the house. Right. And you know what? Like my kids, and a couple of the kids that are in our carpool, when we wrestle our extra season, even in season and out of season, our practice is in New Jersey and New York. So we're driving an hour and a half just to get to a 2-hour practice and then driving back. So for my kids and a couple of the ones that are in our carpool, some nights they're getting home at 10 o'clock. So it's impossible for that teenager to sometimes make his shake for the morning and you know what I mean? Make his own. So there's little things that, hey, if my kid was only just doing a typical sport or wasn't pushing himself so well that he wants to do, yeah, I would make him make sure your shake is done every day and make sure you make your breakfast every day, right? But rest is probably the most important thing for these athletes at times, and the parents got to step up, man. That's my opinion. And I know it's not easy. Parents nowadays, everybody's working, crazy hours and driving everywhere. But hey, it takes 6 minutes to make a protein shake and a bowl of oatmeal, and then pack of water in your son's bag. Now, the days that my son doesn't have that and he's home at 7:30 from a normal practice, you're darn right I'm making him do it, because he's, if this is what he wants, he's got to learn to be acceptable. But that's one of the things I see a lot, especially wrestling season, I think the most, because that's where you see kids, well, how do you get him to eat so well? Well, 3 out of the 5 days I'm packing that stuff, or my wife is. I see a kid who just had a struggle making weight, right? After he finishes his match, and he's eating Nilla wafers and a Coke sitting on the bench. And I'm like, in 2 days, yeah. And I'm just like, mind boggled. And it's like, and then the parents are like, he's not doing this. He's not doing this. Well, you gotta help out a little bit, traveling the country like we do with our sports. I've seen some phenomenal athletes all over the place, and like just so dedicated. And sometimes, like you touched on that earlier about playing multiple sports, and I think that's super important as well, especially till you get to maybe junior, senior year of high school. It's not easy to juggle. I know that for sure, but I just see the elite athletes always have people there helping out. And then like I'll listen to a dad be like, dude, look at that. His mom's pouring his water down his throat after he gets off the mat. Well, you know what? Hey, maybe that's what's helping him be ready for his next match, right? And if they get accustomed to, you try to teach them and make them learn, but when they're 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, it's you help them out, and it's just like when you teach them to pay their own bills, right?
Yep.
Hey, you're gonna pay
Creating habits.
this phone. It's $20 a month, right? But you're not telling them to pay for the electricity and this and that. You just, I use that analogy a lot with people, and it's just like, start them off small, help them as much as possible, and hopefully they learn and take the responsibility little by little. But parents need to help with the nutrition, I think, a lot. And
Yeah. I do that with my kids. So, I mean, hopefully the parents listening, or if there are, when I cook my breakfast, my oatmeal and protein in the morning, mix it all up. I make my son or daughter a little extra, leave it there. When I'm gone, they eat it.
Yep.
I mean, dinner, I make extra. My kid comes home after practice, eat it. I think the habits you teach them, you gotta, we're getting off subject, but you have to set the example as the parent, and your kids will kind of follow. And they're kids. You got to teach them. You might have to do it more than once or a million times, but you got to teach them. Yep.
Like my son doesn't realize, like, our training studio is on my property at home, so he doesn't realize how fortunate he is. Yeah, and he's got compression boots and everything in the basement, so like it's there for him. And there's times where, hey, did you do the boots today? No, I'll get to them. And I'm like, dude, people are driving 40 minutes to use those. You get them up, get down there, and you're right, Dad. You're right, Dad. So, but he's a teenager. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's life skills they got to learn and develop, but if you want your kid to compete at high levels and continue to progress and learn from sports, you got to help. I feel parents got to help a little more than, not all of them, help as much as possible. There's a lot more, and sometimes they don't help because they don't have the knowledge, right?
Yep.
There's certain, when my kids started playing lacrosse, I didn't know anything about lacrosse, but I kind of reached out to people I knew that knew way more than I did, right? And still know more than I did to help them out, right? So, parents just need to reach out, and try to learn as well.
Yeah, right on.
But,
all right.
But that's a good one for today, man. We've been on here for a little while. So anyone listening, every week, like Tuesday, Wednesdays, we'll start putting up there and keep asking questions, and then we'll try to spread the wealth of knowledge, right? And learn from, I'm learning from Chris. Chris hopefully learns once in a while something from me.
Most definitely.
If the two of us can help you, help your athlete and athletes listening, get that pen and pad down. If you have more specific questions, that helps these talks get even better and better. And the more, you don't even have to train with us, and you can get almost like a free training session, and just not make the mistakes I made as an athlete when I was younger. I trained wrong. We didn't have the internet. The most training we knew about is, I would go to CVS, and I feel bad saying this. I'll just pull out Muscle and Fitness, right?
Yeah, Flex Magazine, dude.
Flex Magazine.
Legendary.
And hey, at the time, I didn't have the money to buy the magazine, man. So I would see a crazy workout, and I would rip the page out, man. I'm sorry to say, CVS, I owe you a couple bucks, and those are the workouts. So the good thing that it was I was going to the gym consistently and training my butt off.
Yep.
That was one thing that I was doing right. A lot of times I was training wrong, and as I learned, I got better. But between Chris and I, man, we can help you train smarter and more effective a lot earlier than we did.
Heck yeah, the trial and error I went through is the same. You can learn the mistakes I did on myself. I won't pass on to you. I'll pass on better knowledge that I had.
Yeah.
Back when I was younger. So.
Yeah, and I'm learning something new every day too. So.
Me too.
There's a lot of good information out there, a lot of bad information, but we'll pass on the good stuff. So all right, man, guys, look out for Ford and hit us up with some questions, and hopefully next week we'll get to your question. And Chris, I'll talk to you later, man.
Later, brother.
Take care.
See you, man.